Hello and welcome to TSSA's Challenge Bullying Conference 2020. This event is part of the learning for our Addressing Bullying and Harassment community of practice. Earlier this year we launched Going Beyond, which is an initiative that brings people together to talk about key themes across the transport and travel industries. Here we're going to explore some of our learning so far. Our guest experts are going to talk us through some of their key learnings on bullying and harassment. Kicking off the session is Lawrence Harvey, a specialist on unconscious bias and how that affects workplace relationships and behaviours. Lawrence's talk on unconscious bias brings to the forefront the danger of assumptions and how we can avoid bullying and harassment by being conscious of our own bias.
I've been delivering this stuff now for about 17 years. Before I did this, I spent 12 years as a police officer in Northamptonshire Police. But I've been involved in learning and development for about 26 years. That started when I first joined the police, where I used to come off the streets from general duties and train police officers and police staff in conflict avoidance, physical intervention and personal safety. And I now specialise in conflict avoidance training and equality and diversity training. Now, they might sound like two completely different subjects, but in essence, diversity is all about understanding differences in people. And often if we don't understand differences in people, that can cause conflicts. And it's the unknown differences that cause conflicts that affect behaviours, bullying, harassment, discrimination, victimisation at work. So the two subjects tie quite closely together. When it comes to harassment and bullying, that goes into the awkward box, and people will not always say the awkward things. And if most people are not saying they feel harassed or bullied when they actually do, the natural tendency will be to automatically assume that everything's okay when it's not. And then before you know it, you can have a culture at work or a culture in departments at work where everybody thinks everything's okay when in fact it's not. Often, in my experience, I've not often met someone that purposely wants to upset someone or make them feel bullied or intimidated or undermined. So most people, it's about being conscious of what you're thinking and then thinking about what you're saying and doing. Most initial assumptions will actually tend to be negative, and we explore why that is. And wherever there's a negative assumption, there is a chance to dislike. Wherever there's a dislike, there's a chance to be unfair. So our assumptions can eventually affect behaviours which can manifest itself in bullying and harassment.
Our second speaker, Dr. Gabiya Toyiket, uses neuroscience to understand the root causes of bullying. We learn how different situations and circumstances can cause bullying behaviours. We also learn that our ability to empathise and how we process information can affect our decision making.
Well, first part of the talk, we look at the human behavior and we look at why we do what we do. We look at the root causes of human behavior and see how that links to bullying behaviors. We look also at how our thinking and behavior change in different situations, and how sometimes somebody who might not be a bully in one instance can show bullying behaviors in the other instance, or what could be called inappropriate behaviors, rushed behaviors. So it might not necessarily be the intention to bully or cause harm, but it could be a side effect which is so harmful, unfortunately, to others. Now, let's start with those 5 causes of bullying. And in order to really address that, we need to take a look at the physiology of human brain. And this is a real size human brain. For the brain to analyze the environment and to really assess, is that the situation good for you or not? And create avoidance behaviors to something what's labeled as dangerous, or seeking behaviors to something what could be increase your survival of individual or the species. So those two different kind of dominant thinking states create very different kinds of conversations. When we're in amygdala dominant state or mammal brain dominant state, these are synonyms. We either have very attacking behaviors where we lash out, shout, or kind of, criticize. Or we have either passive attack or we withdraw. So the people vary in kind of what behaviors they get engaged into. Imagine there is a trolley on the railway and there is trolleys going in the direction where there is 5 people on the railway, and it's going to kill those 5 people. The only solution to that is to direct the trolley to the other track. There is no way to stop the trolley. Now, in order to direct that, it would still kill another person, but it at least save those 5 people. Would you press the lever?
Ex-head chef Mike Owens-Brooks has had his fair share of working in high-pressure environments, where bullying can be seen as natural, normal, and in fact part of team working. He talks to our community of practice organiser Andrew Hollingsworth about his experiences.
How will you manage, would you say, generally in some of those different environments? What are the different leadership management styles that you encountered?
So some of it, there was a lot of fear of the head chef. There's very much chain of command. So there would be, you didn't want to get drawn into the office. So if 9 times out of 10, it wasn't for a prank, you'd be drawn into the office. It was for failure to date something or not sending something out fast enough. You've got a rollicking for that. You know, it was seen that some of the pranks, the camaraderie, were basically part of the teamwork.
Does it sound like the means is justifying the end result to you? Based on what he's saying, you know, because when I said, look, which got the better results? And he said, well, actually the autocratic leaders ultimately seem to get similar results to the laissez-faire managers. So does the means justify the ends?
In my view, it comes back to, you know, when I see a high turnover of staff, I look at the quality of the manager. And if you've got bullying at that level, you're training these people up, giving them a good wage, you're building up their experiences. They can say, no, I don't want it, I'm off. So you've lost a potentially good person because of bullying, so they move on. So it's a negative result at the end of the day.
Different companies will have what they will accept as different churn levels. You know, some organisations want a higher churn than others. You know, some want single digits, some are okay with double digits. And I think what I'm hearing here, though, and perhaps, you know, that you're right, I think you're right what you're saying, but I guess what I'm hearing here is potentially that culture that's created from that style of leading and managing becomes normal, becomes normalised, so that people start to think, well, this is how it is.
That's it.
So I need to fit in. I mean, it's me that's wrong. You know, it's not the organ. I mean, look at him and her and him and her. They're all okay with this. You know, okay, they're getting bullied, but maybe that's just the way it is. And he made a very interesting point about he played between different managers and he befriended them. You know, so again, it's that almost that emotional intelligence of the individual to try and navigate their way through this minefield of different approaches just to survive while still feeling a victim. I don't know, Nadine, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is getting to the heart of the really interesting part of this, actually. And what I was thinking about is you might get similar results, but what do you miss out on when you have such a rigid, aggressive style of leadership? And the thing is, like, you're not going to attract different types of people.
Football coach Jim Petruzzi talks to Andrew Hollingsworth about his experiences in the dressing room and how leadership and management styles have changed for the better.
What was it like? What was the culture of leadership and management? What did you observe from maybe some of the club managers and some of the managers around it? What was the sort of general culture and style of the leadership management that you're experiencing?
I think it's changed a lot over the years. I think back in the day, so to speak, and I had this conversation one time. I was doing some coaching in Florida, and Roy Evans, I don't know if you know, the listeners will be familiar with Roy Evans. He was ex-Liverpool manager, and I had this sort of conversation with Roy. We were actually on a boat in Florida. I was helping out on a coaching camp over there, and we talked about how, you know, he's Liverpool when he was manager there, and he had such a talented team, so to speak, but they kind of were just slightly off the pace behind Manchester United, so to speak. But Roy, you get the sense, was a really open manager, really easy to get along with. But the more modern, if you want to call them managers, they're more like we're having a conversation now, Andy, you know, just a nice, calm conversation with the players. And it's a long way away from the old ranting and raving. And there is a place for that. Don't get me wrong. I think there is a place for that, to wear your heart on the sleeve and so on and so forth. But I think science has had a big impact on the way we interact with people. We realise that to get the best out of people, you've got to individually manage the person and understand the person as an individual. And that's the sort of key thing. So I think for me, the styles have changed from more autocratic to democratic to more guided discovery. So in a dressing room now, at half time, if I was a manager would be saying to the players, what are your thoughts? What do you think you could do better? That's not always, obviously, if you're sort of being played off the park, you might get a bit of ranting and raving, but for the most part, they recognise that, okay, let's sort of see and get the players to more resourceful state and appreciate that it only takes some information in such a short space of time. So we've seen changes in styles over the years, and I think that's been based on how we understand, how we process information.
Thanks for joining us today. To find out what you can do to address bullying and harassment in the workplace, visit www.tssa.org.uk/goingbeyond.